Hey, quick video tutorial here for our man Scott Mulligan. Today we'll be covering the triggers that he can use within the animation system, the dialogue system that we're going to be using. So basically this is the Twine setup using my previous YouTube video. You could check that video out, which will show you how to set up the Twine. And then one of the sections of that video is exposing the tags that users can specify. And these are tags which are space separated. And what I've done is I've just set up a few tags that Scott could use in the game in order to basically make certain actions occur. So we're going to be covering all of those today. I have a node cheat sheet here, which is a quick reference guide for Scott to refer to during the game. And Scott, this is located under BVP Do Animals Dream node cheat sheet. So you can reference it there. And yeah, let's just check it out. So I think what we'll do is we'll go one by one. So basically, start. You just say start. I've got all these E's represent screenshots, so you could look at an image that shows how it's used. So start is just the tag, all caps. And that is, of course, the node that the dialogue will begin on. Then end is the node that will end the conversation. So these two are marked end. You can, give it a red flag if you want, and then it will show up as like a vertical bar here on the side. I find that's pretty useful because, it might be useful like whenever you want to see when something comes up or something like that. You can kind of use the colors as a system. I think it's a handy tool, and it doesn't get exported, so it's just for your reference. And yeah, so basically that's start and that's end. Then here is name equals, and then the input is A, and so you can set it to an empty string, which is just quotations, or you can actually specify the name. And so that's what I've done here, where I say name equals Leonidas. So you have the dialogue scene, where you can go on master to get the latest version of this. You can copy it from there. And so basically when I talk to Leonidas, he's using this conversation. So you're going to see when I pop into that, on the left here is his nameplate where it says Leonidas as specified by this section. Cool. The other thing that happens is he switches his animation to animation 0. So basically this is setting the value specified here the key specified here to the value specified here. So it's setting animation equal to 0. So if we look in the Lion's animator, you can see that there's a single parameter called animation, and it's setting that value to 0 at the start of every conversation. And of note, if you are rude to him, then he'll set his animation to 7. So we could see that now. If I go over here, if I'm rude to him, I say who cares? He's going to start doing this weird damage animation. Okay, and he's just going to keep doing that until you set it otherwise. And the only other place I set it's the beginning of the convo, so we start the convo again, and boom, he's back to animation 0. Okay, cool. So that is anim set. We just covered that. Then we'll talk about just this set function. The set function is basically going to set a global Boolean, which you can later refer to. By default, it always defaults to false. And then if you do set, it's going to set that Boolean to true. So in this example, if you give him a compliment, he's going to check whether or not you've... Oh, okay. And so this also works with the check parameter. And so if you do check, then what it's going to do is it's going to see whether or not the parameter is true or false. If it's true, it's going to take the second option. If it's false, it's going to take the first option. So you can see that here, I'm going to check when the player compliments if they complimented already. If they did compliment already, I'm going to go to the repeated compliment. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the new compliment. This text right here is not necessary. It's just for your reference, so please include it so you remember that the false is the first branch. Okay, cool. So down here would be the new compliment, and here he's going to say, oh, that's a nice compliment. But of note here is you're going to see the tag. He's going to set compliment already. So that way we know the next time they do a compliment, he's going to remember, hey, you've already done the compliment. And in that case, he's going to say, hey, you already said that to me. So this node here, it doesn't display any text. It's simply acting as sort of a Boolean gate, and it's going to check whether or not he's complimented it already, and based on that, it's going to pass him to either this node or this node. So let's check that out in action. If I go over to this guy and I give him the compliment, oh, you're so beautiful, then he's going to say, oh, that's a nice compliment. Now if I finish this conversation and then return to him, now I'm going to say the same thing. Oh, what a beautiful voice you have. But now he's going to say, hey, you already said that to me. You're clearly just making stuff up. And so that is obviously different than what he said before. So that's that system in action. And there is, I think, 2 more things for me to bring your attention to. So the next is combining node text. So we've already seen this happening, but we'll call it out explicitly. Basically, what you could do in combining node text, let's look at that example here, is you can say no response option, no display text next to a response option. If the player doesn't have display text to choose between, and again, there's just one response option, it'll immediately choose that option and combine the text of the current node into the latter one. Let me explain that in a little more detail. In this example where he says, we'll use this one, where he says, oh, that's a nice compliment, thank you, there's no response display here, okay? There's nothing where that red circle is. Instead, it just immediately goes to the destination node specified by double brackets. So in this case, what it's going to do is it's going to take that string, oh, that's a nice compliment, thank you, and it's going to automatically combine it into the next node. So he's going to say, oh, that's a nice compliment, thank you, but then he's immediately going to say, I am injured. Without proper aid, I will die. And so effectively what it's doing there is it's taking two separate nodes and it's combining it into one display. So we'll see that here. He's saying, you already said that to me. You're clearly making stuff up. But then it combines into, but I am injured. Without proper aid, I will die. And the reason why that's happening is because, you know, you're making stuff up, and then there's no response to choose, so it immediately collates, I believe is the word, or combines this node display with this node display. So that's the other, and you know, that's useful if you want to sort of give a quick reaction to what a player says. Like maybe you're like, hey, you know, can bears really fly? Or like you could say like, hey, what do you think about vanilla ice cream? And then you could say something like, oh, it's pretty plain. And then the character can respond and he could say, yeah, I guess you're right. But anyways, my favorite ice cream is this thing, right? And he could say, yeah, I guess you're right, but anyways, and like he could combine that all into one node. So it kind of feels like he's responding to you and maybe reacting. If he says but anyways, it definitely feels like he's going in the other direction. But obviously you can write dialogue way better than me. So I'll leave that up to you. But, you know, there is a case where sometimes you're going to want to split the node. So I'll give you an example of that. If he's giving a speech, you might want him to say something, and then for the player to be able to push the arrow, and for him to say something again, and for that to be split up across several different display messages. And so that's exactly what we have happening here with the split node option. And so instead of putting nothing on the line, you instead put 3 hashes. And so if you put 3 hashes, what it's going to do is it's going to show the text as is to the player, but with an arrow. So it's going to say, don't be scared, little human. So we'll see that here. Go up to him. You say that you're frightened. He's going to say, don't be scared, little human. But that's it. As soon as you push this arrow, instead of giving you response options, it's going to jump into the next node where he says something again. Okay, and so that's obviously very different. Instead of combining the nodes, it's deliberately splitting them apart, so you have to push that button in between. Very useful if the character needs to sort of go on about something, maybe give a little speech that might be, you know, two boxes long. However, I'd be really careful about this. You know, we do want player agency wherever possible because it's a video game, obviously. So I would say try to avoid having the NPC, you know, do dialogue page after dialogue page after dialogue page. You know, people aren't going to want to click through that. It's always better if the player can kind of give a reaction, even if it's a throwaway thing. Like the player can just say like, no, I disagree. And then he could say, well, to each their own. But and then he could continue on his conversation. But even though that, you know, it's that little amount of player agency, it does do a huge difference in keeping the player involved. Okay, so here are the tools. They're live. They're on master. Pull the branch. Jump on into it. And good luck. Let me know if you have any questions or if you want to extend this feature set. I'd be happy to do so.